Hey people, Seth here. As you'll be able to tell by the Twitter trending tab, 2020 is already well underway. And as you may know, I've just come out of a 4-month-long kerfuffle with vanilla World of Warcraft. After nearly 400 hours, I finally managed to evade the allure of said bastard 15-year-old game and put it on the shelf. For now. In the spirit of finally getting a break, I decided to dive headfirst into a bunch of other games. Darkest Dungeon didn't really captivate me, as it's basically just a Noita looked cool on the surface, but was a repetitive letdown. However, you know what they say, when in doubt, whip it out. Admittedly, they don't say that. They do say third time's the charm though, and to cut a short story long, I started playing The Witcher 3. This video is my best attempt at articulating my experience with the game, which starts with a cinematic shot of Geralt's feet. Then this scorpion creature gets in the bath and bites his butt. As it turns out though, it was an ethereal bug that our strong female counterpart manifested. I make advances in an attempt to procreate with Yennifer.
I don't want to be reasonable.
But alas, I actually have to play the game to unlock that. Already, I'm captivated by the game, motivated to progress through it, and I've barely started the tutorial. The only mod I installed before playing was the HD texture rework, and I don't regret my decision. This game is objectively gorgeous to look at, and it runs extremely well. On a 1080 Ti, I'm able to play it with all the settings maxed out, VSync on with my monitor running at 144 FPS, whilst recording the game, and streaming it to my friends on Discord without getting any frame stuttering, performance dips, or screen tearing. The second thing I noticed is how extremely fleshed out the dialogue and cutscenes are. I can tell that this is going to be a stark contrast to the standard 12 voice lines shared between all the hundreds of characters in the game I just spent a third of last year on.
To the bottom.
Maybe if you fall.
I'm playing through the game on the second hardest difficulty because I'm a professional video gamer. I like a challenge. I don't want training wheels. I don't want anyone to hold my hand. When it comes to video games, I like a bit of a cuddle with a struggle. The tutorial starts with beating a child to master the precision controls. After which, The Witcher does an absolute 180 in this cutscene. Out of nowhere, the snow starts falling, the atmosphere changes, the ambience and the music in the background gets you all amped up. You're listening to my voice right now, you're drinking bulletproof coffee. I know I'm a good public speaker. What's this ghost death ship with these death knights? These bad guys, the antagonists, actually end up stabbing Ciri with a sword. That's how you can tell they're the evil guys. Then Geraldo wakes from a dream and we start the game from the intro cutscene I forgot to show you. In my first fight, I survived within an inch of my life, fighting these ravenous hounds. And now was when I realized that mashing attack won't be a viable long-term strategy. Alright, I'm gonna go there. No one forced me to, no one said, you have to go and do it, but I just went and did it anyways. I'm gonna point this out to you. The main theme of The Witcher 3 is riddled with Mongolian throat singing, and I fucking love it. One thing that may bother those in particular who suffer from obsessive-compulsive disorder is that I'm choosing to play with the game's patented NVIDIA Hairworks on, which for whatever reason has Geralt's hair simulating a mild storm in every cutscene. One thing that may bother die-hard fans of the franchise is my stern critique of the game. This was crowned Game of the Decade, yet less than 5 hours into my save, I ran into a critical bug that crashed my game every time I equipped an item. I actually had to sacrifice windowed Borderless to keep playing. I'm not saying the game is bad, but to call every inch of dialogue immersive is a vast stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Oh, Nordling. 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 Gods preserve ye. Gods preserve ye. Gods preserve ye. Gods preserve ye. Yokel.
The Witcher 3 has an absolutely extensive skill tree, allowing for a multitude of various builds, letting you spec into general skills, alchemy, witchcraft, combat, and mutagens, anything from bomb creation to shooting fire. And to tell you the truth, I don't really understand any of it yet, at all. All I know is that we saved this merchant from certain death by natural selection, and I get the choice to let the poor merchant rebuild with a fraction of his riches, or take him for all he has and rinse him for his last crowns, dooming him to autofill into the miserable life of a peasant. One thing you have to understand is that a witcher does it all for the coin.
Could always use a few crowns.
When I arrived in my first town, I was greeted by the local drunks, and it quickly became apparent that most common folk don't like the Witchers. I get to choose between talking my way out of the situation, backing off, or savagely cutting them all down right in front of the inn. The choice was very easy, and I'm happy that the choices I make have permanent consequences. This is my type of game. Once inside the inn, I was introduced to the main pitfall of this world, Gwent, The Witcher 3's very own trading card game. Now, whilst I am on a mission to find my wife and shit, Gwent is where it's really at. You can collect hundreds of various heroes to battle with. Which reminds me of one of my favorite games. Raid Shadow Legends, buzzwords, stunning 4D graphics, millions of heroes, combat-based turning, hundreds of players, Mr. Worldwide, #1 rated gaming experience, top shelf certified, fresh and freaky. I could blabber on like every other raid ad on YouTube, but instead, I did something groundbreaking. I actually played the game, because I would rather give Raid 3 times as much advertisement time as they paid for than deliver a handful of buzzwords with no real coherence, actively contributing to the ongoing entropy of society. Here's what happened. I loaded up my favorite turn-based RP gacha game where I'd previously taken advantage of the new players program where, if I remember correctly, you can actually use my special link to get 100,000 silver, 2 client boss keys, 10 mystery shards, and the executioner. Let me introduce you to the gang. Our leader is Horden, the most overpowered hero of all time. A true legend. Exemplar, my other epic hero. A high elf with thick thighs that take lives. Gallic, who for whatever reason has a move that nearly one-shots everything in one hit. And War Priest, our support tank who can heal, buff, and function as a meat shield. If you can't tell, I've structured my entire crusade around Horden. I've naturally equipped these savages with the finest gear, from full sets of armor to faction-specific artifacts. Having unlocked the sparring pit, I get to level my heroes without lifting a finger. And having discovered the double speed and auto buttons, I can even play the game whilst making coffee. No, your eyes aren't deceiving you. Raid absolutely runs cross-platform. And not just can you play it on your computer for free, Amazon Prime is also free if your parents paid for it, which means extra stuff for you. If you sign up before February 9th and log in with Amazon Prime, you can claim 3 epic skill tomes and 40 potions. Future drops run through April, and you really don't want to miss out on this bangin' gamer loot. To claim your bangin' gamer loot, just install the game from my special link and follow the instructions. And then I decided to go back to working on this video. A warm salutations to Raid for their incredibly generous monetary contribution to the crusade. There's so much stuff in this game that I couldn't even show it all in these 2 minutes. They would almost have to hire me again. Once again, a bit louder for the people in the back. If you use my link to download Raid, you get more stuff. It's literally infinite value. After the Gwent incident, I had 2 schnapsies with this fellow who has a lead to where I can find Yennifer.
2 schnapsies!
I went to the garrison yet kept accidentally pulling out my swords because I'm not accustomed to the controls. The guards are very dissatisfied with my behavior everywhere I go. These 2 fellows had strict orders not to let anyone in, but then I said, I'm a Witcher, and they let me in. I spoke to the garrison commander, who aptly pointed out that I was indeed not a dwarf.
It is said he is a dwarf. You are too tall to be him.
Very perceptive of you.
After asserting that I wasn't a manlet, he alluded that he has vital information about my lost love, and he'll tell me everything he knows on the premise that I slay the griffin. Such is the life of a witcher, always being taken advantage of for our only marketable skill. Wouldn't it be much easier if Geralt could just use Jedi mind control? Oh wait, he can, just not whenever dialogue is furthering the main plotline. Got it. So we seek out a hunter, kill some wild dogs, after which he leads us to the wild griffin's dead mate. We learn crucial information, such as the fact that it's a 12-year-old and that the beak's tip is worn. This is The Witcher at its finest, where you have to search far and wide to find tiny, meaningless clues that give us the slightest direction as to how to even play the game. Our trail then leads us to a herbalist who has a young girl on the brink of death due to a mild case of internal cranial bleeding and severe blunt trauma to the head. We get the choice between letting her die peacefully in a pleasant dream brought forth by the herbs, or I could pour some swallow down her throat. Swallow being a witcher potion. This could stop the cranial bleeding, but this could also have the unintended consequence of leaving her tormented in agony for a long, excruciating end to her life.
The whole village will hear her screams.
After realizing I only had 3 swallow potions, I decided not to give the young girl any swallow. May she rest in peace. We set out the lure for the first decent boss fight in the game. The first time, I died because I didn't memorize the griffin's attack pattern. The second time I died, it was because I failed to memorize the griffin's attack pattern. And on my third try, I killed the griffin because I took heed of its attack pattern. I then went to draw on a place of power. They're these shrines that give you an extra ability point. It's cool that you're actually rewarded for exploring the world. Unfortunately, a wraith came to leech my soul, but Roach, albeit he a horse, is the goat and can somehow kill mobs by running into them. Very impressive. Although I'm very tempted to put every point I get into bomb creation, I think I'm gonna go for a bit of a more standard build until I have a good grasp on the game. We return to the garrison commander, who's in the midst of sentencing a humble farmer to 15 lashes with a knout. We have every chance to intervene, but that would be heretical. Fair is fair, and if I were to deliver someone defective goods, I would be insulted were they not to give me at least 15 lashes. As I hear the farmer's tormented screams in the background, I feel a sense of accomplishment. The Witcher 3 truly rewards you for making the right decisions. With the newly acquired information, we head to Vizima, where we meet the nicest old lady bartending the inn. Right as I feel a sense of intrigue and childlike play, another woman slams the old lady's head into the table a handful of times. As we try to intervene the senseless violence, the soldiers in the tavern accuse us of noncery.
They say witches steal young'uns.
I immediately proceeded to burn them alive. Not because of their accusations. I mean, technically, the Witchers absolutely steal children and induct them into obscure schools of magic to eventually subject them to gruesome mutations, leading them into a life of suffering where they'll likely meet their end in the jaws of a demon. No, the reason I scorched and gutted them was because I fucking wanted to.
Be gone, and don't ever come back.
We may be banned from this establishment, but knowing that you've done a good deed is all a Witcher needs. A wise man once said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That man's name? Adolf Hitler. And in a stroke of convenient luck, just as we were exiled from the drinking grounds, Yennifer somehow finds us, accompanied by Nilfgaardian filth. We demand an explanation, and Yennifer simply tells us that we're traveling to Vizima and that she does not have to explain herself. Because women are always right, we don't get any dialogue options. On our trek to Vizima, we get ambushed by the Wild Hunt. Our assertive, insistent, forward, strong-willed Witcher GF does the only logical thing and sacrifices the Nilfgaardian scum for the greater good. Once we arrive in Vizima, we're greeted by this very flamboyant, rather annoying person that has a very thick Dutch accent.
The gentleman will refer to His Imperial Majesty by his full title or not at all.
He proceeds to groom us for our encounter with Emperor Emir. After a clean shave, a proper cross-dress, and a complimentary lesson in bowing, we have our meeting with the Big Cheese. He wants us to find Ciri, which strikes me as odd, seeing as that was literally one of our primary goals as established from the very tutorial. But a Witcher doesn't ask any questions. He merely assesses the depth of his employer's pockets and gets the job done. Our journey leads us to the Inn at the Crossroads, where yet again some frail human wishes to engage in hand-to-hand combat with a literal magic-wielding, demon-slaying demigod. As to not consistently make the same choice throughout my entire playthrough, we agree to disagree, take a shot together, and move on like adults. It was at this point that I underwent a massive lapse in judgment. You see, as per recommendation of my friends that have played the game and various YouTube guide videos, I was under the false impression that doing the side quests is a great idea, both to level up, experience more of the game, and gear more appropriately for the main story. I decided to try my first side quest. I wasn't aware that Wild at Heart is an unbeatable terror hell death quest that's misleadingly recommended for level 4 players. Had I done but a quick Google search, I would have found a plethora of people complaining about this magnum opus of sadistic game design. It starts off like any other quest. We talk to a hunter named Nielen. We're tasked with finding a woman named Hannah who's gone missing. We follow her trail into the woods with our Witcher senses and decimate a pack of wolves by masterfully mashing light attack. After which, we meet a woman who informs us that Hannah surely already succumbed. I tell her I still want to risk my life to find Hannah just in case I can save her. After which, she calls me a
Heartless beast.
Dialogue in The Witcher 3 is incredible. I inspect the area to find that it's a werewolf terrorizing the woods. I then use the incredible game mechanics of dEcAdE to hold down left trigger and follow a red line through the air. You're probably thinking this is groundbreaking stuff, and you're right. When I walked through the door to the werewolf's lair, I had no idea what I was walking into. What stands before me is a werewolf and a pack of wolves. Logically, I presume that if I take out the wolves and dodge the werewolf's attacks, I'll be able to overcome this challenge. First, I want you to pay attention to how much damage I'm dealing. I also want you to understand that I repeated this process over and over again for a fucking hour until I finally caved in and used the power of the internet. But what I found was rather depressing. I'd spent an hour of my life on the easy part of the fight. Once the werewolf goes below 30% HP, it will simply regenerate all its health much faster than I could possibly damage it. How you're actually supposed to beat this quest is by finding a book somewhere in the world that informs you of which oil to use on your blade to deal more damage. And as it turns out, recommending this quest to level 4 players is downright criminal. Had I used the oil and perfectly dodged every attack, it would still be literally impossible for me to win without leveling up my Axie sign and stun-locking the werewolf perfectly, as for him to not regenerate all of his health. After using cursed voodoo magic to damn the creators of this game, I decided I was tired of being shafted and returned to the main storyline. I look for a man named Hendrik. I find the corpse of a man in Hendrik's house, along with a hidden trapdoor. Yet I can't progress any further. You see, in a stroke of absolutely linear game design, I have to go talk to this other guy to find out that it was actually Hendrik's corpse. I could have figured that out, but whatever. With this profound knowledge, I'm now able to find a key in Hendrik's boot and enter the hidden cellar. Oh yeah, he also tells us that the wild hunt ravaged the village, but I still think it's stupid that I had to talk to him. Game of the year! In the cellar, my hair is somehow still blowing in the wind, and I find a book that sheds light on where we may find Ciri. Unfortunately, the villainous Death Crusade already tortured Hendrik, so whatever I know, they know too. This is where Geralt's misadventures took an interesting turn that I absolutely did not expect. When seeking out the Baron of Velen, I was about to have some trouble with the guards, but luckily, one of them turned out to be the man I bought a drink for. After vouching for my manners, I'm allowed to enter the Baron's encampment. This man is presented to us as a kind, joyous lord with a belly full of beer and a heart full of love. He takes us in and tells us that Ciri came here for refuge. Instead of just showing us a flashback through a cutscene, we actually get to play through what happened to Ciri. I fuck with that. Playing as Ciri is sorta like Geralt, except instead of a measly roll, she has a spammable phase dash. This is the most overpowered shit in the game and makes combat a lot more shall we say, digestible. We save a little girl and fight our way through the woods till we eventually enter a cave. Inside the cave, we're met with the King of Wolves, and I'll admit I nearly sharted myself. I just spent a fucking eternity just to get decimated by a regular werewolf, and now I have to fight their king. My concern was rather misplaced though, as Ciri is fucking insane. I defeated the Wolf King with absolutely no effort, and after completing the flashback I continue talking to the Baron. He won't tell me more about Ciri because his wife and daughter are missing. I'm starting to see a pattern here. So instead of using mind control and getting what I want, I naturally agree to seek them out, starting with a thorough search of their rooms. After stealing every object of value, I find a smashed bottle, and it appears someone had been hiding in the closet. Very suspicious. I then follow the scent of his daughter to find a folk talisman which I bring to the man, who tells me that my next clue is likely to be a deranged old man who has a rather alarming relationship with his goat.
Rumour has it he killed his own father with an axe as a lad, then went batty. Now they say he sees ghosts and ploughs his goat.
I pick up every side quest I find and save them for later, after which I seek out the old lunatic. I come to find the Baron's men aggressively attempting to penetrate the man's house. Seeing as I don't have level 2 mind control, I do what I absolutely would have done anyways. The nutcase rambles incoherently and warns me of old magic. Being 94 years old myself, I refrain from informing the man that I frequently practice dark old forbidden magic. He also refuses to help me unless I find his beloved goat. The plot thickens. So I seek out the goat and begin the goat escort mission, where Princess constantly runs off to eat wild strawberries. We ring this bell to make her follow us for a good 30 seconds and have the goat eventually walk the predetermined path to ensure that the player fights the mobs. Because why would they give us the non-linear game design that actually lets our actions alter the experience of this quest, when they can give us the illusion of choice and force us to experience the game in the way they know is best for us? You know what? Fuck Piotr Krzywoźniok and Jędrzejek Mrzoz, the creators of Witcher 3. We bring Peller his goat, and he's ecstatic to be reunited with his princess.
Goat of mine, dearest, sweetest goat.
I remind myself that a Witcher doesn't ask any unnecessary questions. We bring him a dead rat, and he performs a blood ritual so that a demon spirit can speak through his flesh. Through a literal conversation with the astral hell dimension, we find out that the Baron would frequently drink himself into a delirium and beat his wife.
Foul-tempered he is, and he's a fondness for hooch.
This means that his wife and daughter likely fled because of his cruelty, something he failed to mention in passing. We also find he fathered and buried a dead-born child that has now turned into a botchling. What is a botchling, you ask? You'll see. We return to Velen to find the stables on fire, and a quick fire mission begins where we gotta be quick on our feet and act fast to save the men, horses, and stables from burning down. I use the Ard sign to stop the fire, but it does nothing. I try to get in the stables, but the door is locked. Unlike every other wooden door, I can't break this one down because Piotr Krzywoźniok and Jędrzejek Mrzoz thinks it's more fun to search for a key. I go to the Baron because I'm really short on time and I gotta save these people. But he won't go down without a fist fight. Why these idiots constantly seek to fisticuff with a being of primal power is beyond me, but I oblige. After smacking him a few, the Baron stays cunty, so we waterboard him to get what we want. Now is when I realize that the key was actually somewhere on the ground, and that we're calmly walking away from the stables where horses and men alike are burning alive. We confront the Baron with the severity of his domestic abuse.
You beat them.
And he confesses his damnable actions.
My child was dead.
Get hold of yourself. Men like you, when they break down, look downright pathetic.
You're a heartless bastard.
Geralt somehow still agrees to round up the Baron's wife and daughter and return them to him, but not before going to dig up his cursed botchling deathborn demon child. God, I love this fucking game. At the grave we get two options: attack the monster or turn it into a lubberkin. I have no idea what a lubberkin is, but I have to find out. Now that the lubberkin botchling is docile, we begin an escort mission, which in every other game is terrible, but in The Witcher, every escort mission is a joy. boy. There's always some ridiculous gimmick, like a goat-named princess or a volatile demon child that constantly has to be doused with psychedelic magic for it to not bite through its father's arteries. And to top it off, the NPC actually follows you at your speed. You know what? I can concede when I'm wrong. Game of the fucking decade. On our merry way, we get ambushed a handful of times by wraiths, but it's nothing you can't overcome by rolling and mashing light attack. Although, presumably, I will be forced to actually learn the combat relatively soon. The Baron names the monstrosity and embraces her as his daughter, after which we bury it alive. Now we just gotta wait 3 days and 3 nights for the Lubberkin curse to be lifted. I go out to find the stables burnt to a crisp and the whole town grieving the loss of their loved ones. I'm not sure if I'm playing the game correctly, but god damn it, I'm having a good time here. This is fucking gameplay.